Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this little coffee table I got for free and I thought I'd give it a bit of a makeover. It's pretty boring. First up, give it a good wash. You never know how dirty they are until after. You'll see in the bucket here how much filth actually came off it, even though it looked quite clean. It had a few dents in it, so I got some multi-fill and filled those little holes and scratches that were all over the top of the table. The stuff dries relatively quickly. It's easy to use. And because I'm pretty impatient, I got the hairdryer out and I gave it the hurry along. Next step was to sand those patches down. I just used a 200 grit sandpaper and a block, and I went ahead and sanded those right down till they were flush with the wood. Didn't take long at all, and then I scuff sanded the rest of the coffee table. Got a microfiber cloth and just wipe off all that excess dust before you start to paint. So I have these little rollers, pop the table on there so when I paint I can paint right down to the bottom of the legs without getting paint all over my concrete. I decided to paint outside today. It was a nice sunny day. Probably not a good idea with chalk paint because it dries so fast and it was quite hot. So this is the paint I'm using. It's a real cheap paint. It's the first time I've used it, so this is a bit of an experiment. I got it from Kmart. It's called Anko chalk paint, and I've got my favourite brush there and some water to help the paint not dry so quick. So yeah, it's just decor furniture chalk paint. It actually goes on a little bit pink and it dries white. I had to end up using quite a bit of water because it is very chalky. Give it a good stir and yeah, it was pretty thick. Spray the surface of the coffee table with a bit of water before I start to help that spread more evenly. It was drying really fast. So, you know, you get what you pay for. It wasn't very expensive at all. It was very inexpensive. I'm at this stage I already know that I probably won't use this paint again. Flip it over the other side and do the underside. So that's what it looks like after 2 coats. Now what I'm doing here is I got some grey paint and I'm just going to grunge it up a bit. I just want some nice grey bits here, there and everywhere all over it. Sort of a grunge look, not a dirty look, but sort of a weathered, old, well-used look I'm going for. So that's what I did, just put it all over really. If you find that you've put a bit too much on, just get a damp rag and just wipe it off. Or you could wait till it's dry and just sand down any dark bits that are too dark for you. I just mucked around for a little while until I was happy with what I had. This is what it looks like now before I use my transfer. So the transfer I'm using is a vintage post transfer. It's a Dixie Belle transfer. It's the first time I've used Dixie Belle. Normally used redesign by Prima. So we'll see how this goes. This comes in a set of 4 sheets. It's quite a large transfer, and I won't be using the whole lot. There'll be some left over. I need to decide which end I'm going to be chopping off. So I'm going to wrap it around the edge of the coffee table so the transfer goes right around and sort of underneath a little bit. So we'll start with this side, this piece. I'm just going to fold back the paper so I don't move my transfer because I've got it exactly where I want it to be. Just fold that back and pop the transfer back down again. Press that down lightly with your fingers and then go ahead and start rubbing quite firmly with your wooden spatula that comes with the transfer in the packet. And remove the rest of that paper. Smooth it out with your hand. Normally with the transfer you smooth it out and it's stuck, like it's not going to move. This one didn't. It didn't really stick that well, and I don't know if it's because it's a Dixie Belle transfer or it's this cheap paint I use. It was way too chalky. I think it's the paint. So I did have quite a bit of trouble in getting it to stick, which is very unusual for a decor transfer, furniture transfer. So go ahead and do the edges first. Get your nail or your tool and press it right into that groove. So there's no air pocket left there. It's got to be right flush with the wood, right into that groove. Use your nail or that tool. So that's looking really good. So yeah, it's taking quite a bit of rubbing to get this transfer on. I'm a bit concerned. You can see here just a little bit where I'm pointing. So if that happens, pop it back down, press hard again. I mean, that's normal, that happens all the time. But with this one, it happened all the time, like really bad. I had to press really, really hard with the spatula, so a bit concerned at this stage. And that's the first piece done out of the 4. Go ahead and look for little bits that are sticking up and just press them down with your finger. Yeah, just rub or burnish, they call it, the edges of the transfer. Make sure it's stuck down really good. So go ahead and do the second piece. Just fold the paper back and line that up. Just take your time here so it's exactly where it should be. I nearly made a boo-boo here until I moved it. There, that's better. And just repeat the same process as before. Do the edges first and then work your way along until you get the whole thing done. You can see here, little bits still need to be done. Put it back down, rub it again until the whole thing's complete. And there's your second piece. That's looking really neat. Look for any bubbles, any pieces sticking up, and give those a press down with your fingers. So this is what I mean by it's going to be a little bit of transfer left over. Third piece done, and just grab the backing paper and pop your transfer, your leftover bit, straight back on. You can save that and use it for another project. I just tape the sides of it so it doesn't move around, and then you can just roll it up and pop it back in your tube. So this is what it looks like with the 4 pieces all put on, all joined up. And I can't see the lines where they join, so that's really good. So it just looks like one massive piece. And I'm just checking again for any bits that are curling up. And there was a patch there that just kept curling up, and I think that's because of the chalk paint. It's just too chalky. So this, I did a coat of Rust-Oleum clear coat, matte clear coat. So I get this on it, that'll help it stop peeling up. I ended up giving it 4 coats of this. It stopped peeling up, but I was a bit concerned. So I thought 4 coats, because it's going to have a bit of, it's going to get knocked around. It's going to be a little coffee table, so the more coats the better, I think. So then I thought, oh, just put a stencil on the side, just to bling it up a little bit more, add a bit more dark colour to the sides of the coffee table. So I've got the stencil here. I've used it before on another piece of furniture that I made over. It was the sewing machine cabinet I did. You can check that out in my playlist if you like, under the furniture. Just go ahead and just dab lightly with a little bit of paint. Don't have excess, don't have too much paint on your dabber, otherwise it'll bleed through and it won't have nice sharp edges. So that's the first piece, and oops, don't do that. That's okay, didn't mark it. Take that off. Now let that dry before you do your next piece, otherwise you could disturb that paint, of course, and make a bit of a mess. And there we have it. So I did that all the way around. So remember, this is what it looked like before I started. Pretty plain. And this is it now. Just a little table next to my couch there. What do you guys think? Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.